Right. All right, good morning. Thank you all so much for being with us today at our Williamsburg County Finance and Budget Committee meeting this morning. Please accept our apologies for being late this morning. There were some technical difficulties, but I think we've gotten those corrected. At this time, we're going to ask Councilman Floyd, if he would please, to lead us in our invocation before we begin our meeting this morning. Councilman Floyd.
Let us pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for waking us up to another beautiful day that only you can provide for us, Lord. Now that we gather and assemble in this building, Lord, we ask you put your will upon us and see to it that we do the will of the citizens of this county. We ask all those blessings in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. God bless you. Thank you. All right. We have a couple of appearances today. We have first our Williamsburg County Treasurer, the Honorable Kimber Cooper. The Sheriff, Sheriff Gardner, is also scheduled to be here today, as well as our Clerk of Court, Ms. Staggers, and our Auditor as well, Ms. Crystal. So at this time, we'll go in the order that we have scheduled, and we will have the County Treasurer to come first. Ms. Cooper, Madam Treasurer, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Yes, ma'am, my pleasure.
For allowing me to come to you before you this morning to express my concerns regarding a personnel matter in my office of some employee salaries who's under $50,000. Those salaries are not public, so it is my request this morning to go into executive session to discuss these issues.
Okay. Now, the salaries, as it relates to the $50,000 mark, it's my understanding that any employee who makes $50,000 or more, the government entity has a responsibility to list the names of those employees. I don't think that would have anything to do with the executive session. But as I indicated in the email that I sent you late yesterday afternoon, the decision to go into executive session is an action item, and that is a decision that will have to be made by the members of council. So what we'll do, I will just, as a matter of record, I guess I will ask, is it your desire or your request to go into executive session?
It is my desire to go in executive session regarding a personnel matter for my office.
All right. So at this time, I will ask, is there a motion to go into executive session? Is there a motion to go into executive session? Is there a motion to go into executive session? All right. With there not being a motion to go into executive session, then we will have to remain in open session.
Wow. That's fine. Thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
My approach, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am.
Since I'm not being allowed to go into executive session, I would just ask that you guys follow along with me as I try to indicate the staffing issue in my office. I will try to be discreet and not disclosing my staff's names as to protect their privacy regarding their salaries.
Yes, ma'am.
The Williamsburg County Treasurer's Office is once again in need of staffing. I currently do not have any clerks for my window. I have lost 2 exceptional employees within the last 7 months due to the pay rate for tax clerks, which is between $12 and $12.50. We cannot compete with the private sector and work from home jobs. Due to the fiscal nature of the Treasurer's Office and the level of cash receipts, it is imperative that we hire qualified, trustworthy individuals, and that individual comes with a cost, and $12 an hour evidently is not that cost. When I last met with you, the Finance Committee, I shared with you that I had an excellent employee who drove from St. Stephen's South Carolina, for a minimum hourly rate. And I had concerns that she would be leaving us, and here I am today, she's gone. I also shared with you a folder full of employee applications of people who are willing to work, but when they saw the pay rate, they refused a position. I currently have 4 staff members in my office, including myself, and we have to cover the front window, the drive-through window, as well as maintain our required responsibilities in our individual offices. Due to the fiscal responsibility of the Treasurer's Office and our commitment to the citizens of this county, financial responsibilities have to be segregated. We are upon the close of a fiscal year that includes an extensive closeout process, including the reconciliation of 40-plus bank accounts to the general ledger, balance taxes, tax refunds, etc., as well as begin our compilation of information for the new audit year coming up, as well as audit information for municipalities. In the past, I am aware that there were some departments who were allowed to consolidate unfilled position as a way of creative financing to increase their employees' salaries or their pay rate. My office has not been fully staffed since the beginning of COVID. My request at this time is that I ask you, the finance team, to possibly consider allowing me to consolidate one of my available positions and offer a staff a competitive pay rate to hopefully keep those that I currently have in place. I can't emphasize enough the importance of having the Treasurer's Office fully staffed and with capable staff with a competitive pay rate. So I'm asking you to consider my request at this time, and thank you for your time.
Madam Treasurer,
Yes, sir.
I have one question. Well, I have one question now.
Yes, sir.
What do you consider as a competitive rate for your staff?
I think it was mentioned before in a previous finance meeting that the people across the street at McDonald's is making far more than my clerks are making at this time.
Okay.
So for a clerk on the window and the responsibilities, I would say between $15 to $16 an hour.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Cooper,
Yes, sir.
you after you consolidate those 2 positions, then you're requesting just one position now because you're going to consolidate those 2 into one, right?
That is my request if I'm allowed to use that salary to hopefully keep the staff that I have in place. Yes.
Okay, and that person, you will feel comfortable that for retention purposes, between $15 and $16 an hour will do.
That's a starting rate. I really can't answer that. Due to work from home jobs and other jobs, it's just a tough market.
Okay. Well, I certainly understand what you're saying, and I do share with you, and we'll certainly do all that we can to accommodate your needs and wishes. Certainly will.
Thank you, sir.
One additional question, Madam Treasurer. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Ford.
Madam Treasurer, I hear what you're saying, and you're right, you did come to us, but I think we advised you earlier in the year that it was in the middle of the calendar year and our budget was already in place. But we are in the budget right in time, and you're here at the right time now. But my question is, what 2 positions do you want to consolidate? One, the clerk and just a general staff person, or what 2 positions is it?
I don't have a clerk. So
Okay.
it's two clerks that I
2
have.
clerks, okay. And your proposal is us to just basically get rid of one position, consolidate those 2 into one, but increase the pay substantially?
Not just for that clerk, because I will still have less staff.
Right.
I would need the funds from that position to increase the salaries of my other staff, because we're
Okay.
all taking on more responsibilities.
In other
We
words,
have a
evenly
drive-through window.
distributed across the board.
Well, it depends on your responsibilities. I'm not going to say evenly distributed, but it depends on your responsibilities.
Do you have a recommendation as to how you would like to have the funds from that particular position distributed among the members of your staff?
Not at this time. I would have to weigh it against their current responsibilities and where I would be issuing more responsibility, because we won't have a person at the window, so we'll be playing kind of switcheroo going to the window, and I have to keep in mind certain people who work the window, you cannot make deposits or reconcile because those duties have to be segregated.
So how quick would you be able to get the information to us as to your recommendation and what you would like to do?
Probably by next week, because we're short. I have 4 people. I have requests from your office, the auditors that I'm pulling, so it'll probably be sometime next week. I have a major request from your office as of yesterday.
Right. But I mean, I agree, we have a lot of major things going on right now between the budget and the audit and some other different things that we've got going on. And we consider this is very important as well. And that's why I asked how quickly you could get this recommendation to us. The quicker you can get this recommendation to us, as we are now getting ready to prepare for the second reading of the budget, we can try to get some of these numbers computed in and try to get you accommodated. I want to try to get you accommodated if we can with this request, because it seems to be a reasonable request. But I don't want to have the responsibility of taking, you've already offered up one of the clerk's positions as a consolidation to improve the salaries of the remaining staff in your office, and I think that's very noble. But I don't think it should be our responsibility to determine how much of that money goes where. I would like for you to make that recommendation as the elected official and the department head of that department. You make that recommendation, and then we'll make a determination on whether or not we're going to honor the recommendation or we're going to compute other numbers. But we do need to have, I think, out of fairness to you, you should at least have the opportunity to make, that recommendation to us, and then we make a decision going from there. We shouldn't make that decision for you.
And I'm not asking you to, Mr. Supervisor. I was simply stating what my request was. And I think if I had seen a copy of the new budget before, I have not seen my budget for the upcoming year, so I don't know what's in it, what's been considered.
Right.
So that plays a role as well.
Right.
Because we had requests for that budget, and I have not seen anything as to what I turned in.
That's right. Well, the new budget is still in the process of being completed. In fact, council will be meeting. We'll have a budget work session today to discuss with council the new budget, and hopefully by the second reading of the budget, we'll be able to distribute those copies to the department heads and the elected officials. But in the meantime, what I'd like to do is deal with your immediate request to deal with those salaries in your office, because as you and I have discussed before, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, we do need to address those salaries.
So at this time, you don't know when I will see my budget for the upcoming year?
I think I just said that it'll be ready for you by the second reading. But in the meantime, let's address this issue that you want addressed in your office as it relates to the increase in the salaries for your staff, because I'm assuming that that's the most pressing thing that you're dealing with right now with your office, is increasing those salaries, and we want to try to accommodate you if we can. I just want to get recommendations from you as to how you would like to have those monies dispersed.
I understand that. I guess what I'm trying to figure out, if the requests that I made in the budget for this upcoming year, if those are being honored in any way, then I can tie those two together.
That's fine. That'll be fine. So, in other words,
And back to you, because I really need to bring someone
Sure.
into my office.
well, let me ask you this question, and
Yes,
this
sir.
may solve solve it for both of us. Is it okay to just take a look at what you've already requested and just go from that and just use that information?
I can't answer that because I haven't I
Well,
haven't seen it.
I'm talking about what you requested in your budget for your staff. I mean, you saw that because you completed that budget.
I
if-
thought because I completed it, but I don't know if it's been considered or if it's included.
Well, that's
what
why I'm asking you now, do you want us to consider that, your initial request for your budget? Instead of having to redo the recommendation, we can just reconsider we can just take a look at what you've already requested, and then we'll go from there. And then that'll keep you from having to redo it again because you've already done it in your initial budget request.
I would have to compare the two, Mr. Supervisor. I don't want to answer that right now.
Okay,
I will take a look at both of them.
okay, all right, sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Sheriff Gardner. Yes, good morning.
Bear with me just a minute. You put it on there too? Okay, I can see it myself.
Okay. Got it.
It come up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep, we got it.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
All right. So what I'm here to talk about today is the overtime and how did the sheriff's office end up where we at. So I thought the best way to do this is just to kind of put it together and let's look at a slide. Now this slide, can you all see that pretty good?
Yes.
Yes.
You can read those numbers? All right, so one of the things we did is just look at what were our workforce indicators. And I provided that early on in the budget. One of the things I guess are the biggest thing on there I would call your attention to is two things. When you look at the actual for calls for service, and we'll get to that as we go through the presentation. And then when you come down to where calls for service by agency and you look at the total numbers there, you see, of course, where 2021 to 2022, you see 12,919. And for the fiscal year to date in 2022 to 2023, you saw that we were at 10,115. Now, if you look at those numbers prior to that, again, that speaks to the other agencies in this county. And then you have the sheriff's office. And so the services that we provide are pretty much exceeding what everybody else, you can add them together and you're gonna come up with a higher number for the sheriff's office. We have our state agencies that are here, but one of the things a lot of times we end up even supplementing in that is the slow response, sometimes because they're just not here or they don't have the workforce out there. So of course that ends up us having to end up dealing with a lot of calls, all right? So we're gonna go, I kind of like to say that doesn't really show you anything. But if you look at this chart, it gives you 17 years of what it looks like. So 2023 is on there just to kind of give you a point. But we started in 2007, and you can see that line, the orange line, is going to be your average. So that just kind of gives you an average of what does the sheriff's office, what's the average number over that 17-year period. Well, of course, you see from 07 right on all the way up to 2019, you see us constantly climbing. We kind of divoted a little bit in 2017 there, but again, we still were above what our average is. Well, around 2019, you see us come down, and then you see us steady decline. And so far this year, if you take where we're at 2023 with the 6,454, you could just double that, for instance, and it'll probably come up around where we're currently functioning at, around what was in the previous year, around 12,427. But what I call your attention to is we talked about the recognition of how we had decreased violent crime when we reported in the SLED stats. One of the things that the presence of having more officers on the streets has done is brought down the calls for service because we have a greater presence. Now, one of the things before we go too far I talked about is that the calls that we go to. So I've got that in here to identify why we sometimes have greater people. But this just points to the fact of what a greater presence has done. as a result of calls for service. This pretty much cut them in half. All right. So we're going to go to,
Before we go to that,
Okay, go ahead.
can we go back to that screen?
yes, sir.
I was making a note. All right, so down at 2023, it says 6,454 calls. Is that what you all are up to?
Currently today. That's up to the
Currently
21st.
today.
That's right.
So now, how did you all determine that 25,000 was the average number of calls for service?
Yeah, so we took the total numbers from 2007 and 2023 and divided that by 17. You got 17 years worth of data. You
Okay.
take those total numbers and divide it by 17. The only other thing that you can do with this chart is determine your deviation. And that's just determine what maximum and minimum deviation is and what makes the noise. But if you look at this and you take the average without getting real complicated, you can pretty much see where your noise is and what it's done.
Right, but what I'm asking, and I'm looking here from 2019, you're saying to us that we had over 31,000 calls for service in 2019.
That's correct.
All right, and we now have only 6,000.
Yeah,
that's
that's-
a 75%. Am I adding that right? Maybe not 75. Maybe that's a tremendous drop
Right.
in calls for service. So,
Correct.
is that what this information is suggesting?
Correct.
We've gone from 31,000 calls for service
Correct.
for the sheriff's office, not just.
No, sir. This is just sheriff's office. This has nothing to do with anybody else. This
All
is
right,
just
so the
calls that we
31,000 is sheriff's office calls for service,
That's
right?
correct. That's right.
In 2019,
That's correct.
and now we're down to 6,454.
Right, and that 6,000 represents from January to current date
Yeah.
for 2003.
Yeah.
That's not on budget year, that's operating just truly in the true year.
So at the current rate, we'll have.
We'll end
See, I'm
up-
going by what you got on the screen.
Yes, sir, so.
That's okay. So
Right.
a more reasonable number is going to be somewhere between 12 and 13,000.
That
Is
is
that
correct.
what you
That's right.
suggest?
That's right.
So still with that, you're saying that we've dropped from 31,000 to 12,000 in recent years. So that's
That's correct.
about a what?
You pretty much cutting it- you're cutting it in
55%,
half.
60%
Definitely.
decrease?
That's correct.
Okay. In
Now-
calls for service.
Correct.
And this information that you're giving us, it's not noted on the bottom, and I'm doing this for the benefit of not only those of us on council, but I'm asking this for the benefit of those who may be watching.
Sure.
This information that you're giving us has been generated from where?
From Central Square, which is our record management system.
All right, from
Commonly
you all's
known as our
RMS.
RMS system, yes, sir.
All right.
Which
Got it.
is the holder of all our statistical data.
Records management. Got it. All right. Now, as far as the calls for service,
Right.
what do you consider as calls for service? Is it any call, every call, or do you have these categorized differently by emergency or non-emergency, or is this a computation of
This
all?
is just every call that
Everything.
we do.
All right.
Yeah, so
Very good.
any call that our workforce will be tied up with.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
Prioritization of calls would refer to how the shift supervisor had to break it down when they get it
Perfect.
out. And dealing with time response. But we're just looking at what does that workload for the shift look like? That's all.
Sure. Got it. Okay.
Okay.
And this would even include any calls that may have been referred to another agency or referred to another department.
Yeah, so even when you speak of referred calls, so that
Okay.
could be like a traffic collision.
You still gotta take the
A lot of
call.
times we end up out there doing services such as providing traffic direction, whatever it may be.
Got it. Got it.
And oftentimes, sometimes we find ourselves there for an hour, 45 minutes. It
Got
could be, yeah. All right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
All right.
All right, so the next thing we're going to go to is slide number 3. And so when you look at a decline in that, you say, well, hey, Steve, you speak of what has increased. What's got your attention that requires a greater response? Because one of the things that you've heard from me, if you go back and look at the last one, is our calls for service increase. Well, that speaks specifically to our shots fired calls for service. Now, Again, that may not always be an actual shooting, but again, it just requires us to respond. So if you look at that in 2007, you see we were around 88. And then so far this year, we had 137. But if you look at last year, you see in 2002 where we had 238. Well, of course, you see a constant incline in that. And of course, that's all over. That's not just discriminatory to Williamsburg County. It's something that we've seen everywhere. But the problem is when we have these type of calls, that's something that you end up sending more than one officer to. And then if there is something, then of course we need to be able to respond in a certain manner as far as crime documentation and those type of things, which eat up a lot of hours. And then even if there's an event that needs to be investigated, of course, then the investigative hours require a lot of attention. All right? Any questions about that? All right, so shootings. Now, this kind of bounces all over the place.
Excuse me, Steve.
Please, no problem. So shootings, again, this is where we actually have something that may not necessarily be defined as murder. It may be assault and battery first, assault and battery high aggravated nature, whatever it may be. But anyhow, so if you see here, of course, we had a decrease, but if you come back to 2018, we shoot up very, very high where we go to 63, then we come back to 50 in the following year. And then in 2021, we come down. Well, that's the year where you actually see us get credit for the reduction in violent crime. But again, that was all a result of our workforce being able to work and respond. Well, of course, in 2022, we go back up. In 2023, we're currently at 20. Huh?
Hold on. I'm trying to write.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm trying to write some stuff. Oh, okay. You got copies for us. All right, great. All right, that's even better. Thank you so much. I was trying to keep up with this.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you so much. This helps me out tremendously.
So the next slide just simply shows where we were recognized by SLED stats. And of course, you see the source on the bottom down there in case anybody's wondering about that. Again, you see on there, we were in the top 5, and that brings us down to a negative 28% for as far as our reduction. And if you go back to that slide that we just were on, slide number 5, it gives you the data that supports that. Any questions about that? All right, and this is just a picture of Tommy Egan. This is a guy we deal with nowadays. Clean-cut guy, but he can get into a lot of stuff, and so we deal with a lot of different people nowadays. And this just speaks to the other thing we deal with, active shooter scenarios. Consume a lot of people, and it's something that you have a lot of resources and workforce in order to respond.
Now, well,
Go ahead.
let's go back to that. You're saying that's just a training mod. I mean, that's just part of your training, right?
Correct.
The active shooter training?
That's correct.
Right. You guys do that once or twice a year, right?
That's
okay.
right.
All right. All right.
All right, so proactive steps to reduce overtime. Identify time periods of events. So one of the things that we did, and I'm using this just as a speaking point, is myself and the chief, we try to figure out and pay attention to what time periods do we have the most going on. Sometimes that may be Thursday and Friday. So we can try to allocate our workforce. We need additional people to come out to say, hey, this is the time period that we need you out, versus just having people floating around. So far that's worked, but sometimes that can get a little unpredictable. We try to keep, one of our community, our teams that we put together, our community action team, which is the next thing that I got on here, we rotate them around and keep people guessing, because sometimes if they figure out you're doing one thing, of course they adjust. People that have the intent to do things maliciously or bad, they're paying attention to us too, and so they know how to function around what we do. So that's one of the things that we do. Our community action team, we wanted to figure out something that we could do, and this is not about solely just enforcement or just going out and making a lot of cases. This is about talking to people, about identifying community problems, and then bringing that intelligence back so that we can better understand how we need to respond to our problem. So those people can focus on those things. So we repeatedly see identified problems. We have those 3 guys, and that's where we've actually partnered with the city of King Street so that we can together go out and work, because we just don't have the people.
All right, so you have 3 minutes.
We have 3 people.
3 members. I'm sorry.
That's correct. It's 3 members.
Of your community action team.
Yeah, 2
All
from the
right,
sheriff's
and
office.
how often do they work?
They work pretty good. They work around 5 days, and they work around 12-hour shifts.
Okay, so in a 2-week Because, I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room is that we're discussing overtime.
Right.
So how much, these three members, please, without revealing any names,
Right.
let's just talk about those numbers. I mean, there's an 80 or either an 86-hour work week, correct?
That's correct.
Before you all begin to accumulate overtime.
That's correct.
How many hours are these, is this three-member team getting in a 2-week pay period?
Yeah, so the three members, only two of them belong to the sheriff's office. That's what I was stating earlier. One of them is a member of King Street Police Department. So they are our K-9 handlers as well, or both of them. So out of the 86 hours, they average around work hours, 140 to 150. The additional hours that often you ask about are their K-9 hours where they're paid for their time. Now, that's something that was in place prior to me coming to the sheriff's office.
Yeah,
Is
but
that
that's-
some-
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is that something that can change? Yes, sir. Where you can change it so it comes off of looking in hours of work, which appears one way and sends a perception, but those are just their training hours, which they're entitled to.
Okay. So now that's only two people,
That's correct.
all right? Now, here's my dilemma. As we're trying to work on this budget, this is two people that you've explained to us. How many other people are we talking about that are working overtime?
Oh, I have a good bit, sir.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't stay here to try to.
I mean, I know because of the dollar amount. That's why I was saying, when you said two, I'm like, well, wait a minute now.
Yeah, so those two are just assigned to that community
Okay,
action team.
all right, very good.
So they're specifically assigned a task with a purpose.
Got it.
Right. Yeah. We
All
good?
All right.
All right. So the next thing that we've been working on is a drone program. And the reason we've started that is hey, how do we look at this different? You know, a lot of times we find ourselves responding to calls for service, and so sometimes you find yourself with a delay in time, and of course, by the time you get there, there's a lot of things that could be changed. So what we started looking at is how could we use our drones to gather intelligence to say, hey, how can we approach our equation different? So that way, instead of us, example, this past weekend, so Friday and Saturday night, we know there's a particular area that we have a lot of shots fired calls. So we station our operator in a specific location and say, hey, when you hear something or a call for service comes out, because you may hear something before you see something, send that drone immediately to that area so we can see what we can gather. Because a lot of times we get there may be just nothing. And then people may say 2 weeks later, well, hey, this is what I've got as far as a shots fired call or some shooting, and this is what you got going on. And then at some point, we end up finding out something. Well, what also helps with that is liability issues. Sometimes we have officers responding to those things wide open trying to get there. Whereas at the end of the day, we can gather intelligence data, or we can see that, hey, it's just somebody that went outside and fired off some rounds. Again, we don't need to send our resources to that. So the more we can invest in this program, we went and took a trip to Georgetown so that we could look at the new drone programs. You know, one of the things that I think as we go along is the use of technology. Drones are designed for rural communities. One of the things that we have not been able to do is to gain additional officers. And as a result of that, in order for us to be successful, you see where we eat up a lot of overtime. You know, I think that the overtime speaks to the fact that we need a bigger workforce, but we just don't have it. But at the end of the day, we have to follow some of our counterparts. You know, the military uses drones to do all kind of things. One of the things, if you think about at Shaw, they monitor what goes on in Afghanistan without being in Afghanistan. So we went and we looked at upgraded drones, something that has what you call the shock sensors and so forth, where you can tether drones in a different place. And those things are around $30,000, but again, just giving you, when we think futuristic and even thinking current, how do we get somewhere? We can't just think for today. Those things can tether in certain areas and then deploy to areas to gather data. So that's what we're trying to work on to gather data and intelligence and how to implement drones into our workforce so that we can hopefully reduce overtime even more, and then the need also fill in where we're not able to fill people in. And of course, that allows us to gather so much data. You know, they have the ability to go to an area, respond, tell you who's in the area, read tags, do facial recognition, and those type of things. All right, overtime approval. What Chief Cumbie and I have done is we go through and we look at the timesheet. So we make sure that whatever overtime is being worked is approved. We still work on trying to get it where you put in the note section actually what it is. Sometimes you see it on it, sometimes you don't, but that's something that we have an opportunity with, trying to say, hey, this is what it is, in case someone says, hey, why are you working overtime? You know, sometimes if perception gets in front of reality, then you got a problem. And a lot of times that's what happens with stuff
Right.
like this.
Can we go back to the drone program
Yes, sir.
implement? And please accept my apologies for going backwards, Sheriff Gardner. How many people are currently in your drone program?
So we did the investigators, and we've got 2 primary drone operators.
All right, so that would be 2 people?
Right. That's right.
Okay. And how are they scheduled? How do they work? How are they scheduled?
Yeah, so they're scheduled just like everyone else. If there's a need for us to use anything that will go along with the drone, then they may be called out to a crime scene. So let's say we want to document a crime scene from an aerial perspective.
Right,
And
but
they're called out.
that's only in an emergency when you need someone. Is that on a regular basis that they are working and being utilized, or is that just whenever a situation arises?
Yeah, so I'm gonna cover some more details about when it would come out. So again, that's just one scenario. Another scenario is, like I just spoke about, we figure out that there's an identified period where we're having problems. And we figure out that that drone is something that we can use as a resource to say, hey, tell us what we're gathering, what we've got going on. Is it effective? You know, one of the things from this past period, and that's what I think you're speaking about, Supervisor, is additional hours. We didn't have calls for service that resulted in those areas. We had one that came out of the club, but again, we were able to get there, identify from, you know, who was moving what and who was security and who was not, some different factors along those lines. But they are scheduled to work at times. But that's based off of what we identify may be the need for them to be scheduled.
Okay. On average, how often do these drone operators work? And on average, how much overtime do they use?
I couldn't tell you how much time is specifically just allotted to the drone program itself or just drone operation. I couldn't tell you that.
Okay.
I think one of the important things, again, in that is what we talked about just a minute ago, an overtime approval, where you go in the comment section
Right.
and actually identify what that is, and then you can go back and pull that data. We don't have what you call a console that allows you to put in data that says, well, I did 8 hours patrol, and in 8 hours patrol, I worked two collisions, this, that, and the other. You don't have that. You'd have to go in and pull out the data, then try to separate it. But you can go in the timesheet and do the comment section and identify it, and it will allow you to retrieve it.
Right.
Sheriff Gardner,
All right.
the officers that's assigned to the drone program, they are also your regular officers. I think Sheriff Supervisor had asked this before, but I just want clarification. These drone operators, they are regular officers that's pulled away when there's a need for drone purposes.
Yes, sir, that's correct. We have several people that are assigned to lateral duties, and that's why when a supervisor was asking that question, I was we have people doing multitask. And I think we like everybody else. I'm not here to offer that to say that's a reason why we're different than somebody else. I think all of us are doing a lot of lateral duties. I think, you know, but that's exactly right. Their officers would have a different assignment, and they can find themselves doing multi-things.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of be quiet and listen to the rest of the presentation because I don't know what the answer is. I've never been in law enforcement, but I do know those overtime hours are astronomically high, and we're trying to figure out some way to bring them down. So without saying too much, I'm going to listen to what else you have to say,
Right.
and see what kind of suggestions will come up, how we can decrease these number of hours
Yes,
by
sir.
some way or some mean.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
Yes, sir. So one of the other things we did is the Citizen Academy. That's to try to get more accountability, to get our citizens to help. You know, if we try to do everything if the role falls on us, at the end of the day, we can't do everything. So the more that we can get them to help us, the less that we have to be out there doing, and the less crime you can see, and they can take more of a proactive approach. Community relations, just simply getting out and being visible and knowing that we're there. Increased workforce size. Again, I think the numbers speak to that. If you look at our overtime numbers, it speaks to the fact that, hey, our workforce is overworked. I make no bones about that. I totally agree. And then lastly, support from other agencies. You know, sometimes it boils down to just this. We get to a point and we can't provide those services, then we have to rely on the state to step in and provide services. You know, we hope that that's something that we never have to do, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We have those personal relationships, but if we find ourselves in a place, then that's just where you have to go. I mean, that's the only other option you got. I hope we never find ourselves there, but again,
Right.
yeah. And I don't think any of you all do either. So,
Okay.
any questions?
Yes, sir. With that being said, what are your recommendations? Because I know we were here about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and we talked about the overtime at the sheriff's office, and I'm assuming that you're back here today to tell us what you all are going to recommend to cut it. Of course, we realize that you do have some shortages within your office, and you and I have addressed that. But we're spending in excess, at least the last 2 or 3 budget years, we spent in excess of $1 million. This year we will be south of that, and to your defense, you all have cut it down some. But we have plans with the budget of increasing your overtime
Right.
line item, but not to $1 million.
Right.
And so, you know, I've been looking at what you all have been spending in overtime over the last couple of pay periods, and again, it has gone down from what it was last year this time. But we still got a ways to go. We've got to cut it in half to probably more than half. We're spending right now, I think about $26,000 every 2 weeks in overtime just at the sheriff's office. Now that doesn't include the detention center. That's just the sheriff's office. We're averaging about $25,000 every pay period. Well, we've got 26 pay periods in a year. That's $650,000. Just with where we are now, I mean, because we were only budgeted, and I'm operating off my predecessor's budget.
Right.
You all were budgeted $180,000 for overtime, and so you're way in excess of that. But even with the increases that we're looking at to your budget, and what you and I discussed a few weeks ago about increasing your budget too, it's still not $650,000.
Sure.
And so we've still got to cut. I think with what we're recommending, we'll be recommending to council, and this was after our discussion about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
We're going to recommend to council in the budget to increase the sheriff's overtime budget from $180,000 to $300,000. That means that they will only be able to spend, in order to stay within budget, $11,500 per pay period. Right now, at what they're doing now, it's double that, which means that we're going to have to cut the overtime sheriff and chief in half just to be within compliance of the budget, because I mean we have to stay within the guidelines of this budget, because as I've shared with you as well as some of the other elected officials and department heads, any overages, especially as it relates to payroll, those overages come from somewhere else, and we have to get that money from somewhere else. And oftentimes that means if there are other departments or other elected officials who need things within their offices, we're not able to get them those things because we've had to pay those monies which are over the budget. We've had to pay those monies, and we've got to get that money from somewhere. So I guess I go back to my original question. What can we do to bring this overtime down to where we can remain within the budget parameters that we're going to have established. Because like I said earlier, even with what we're talking about putting in the budget at the rate y'all are going now, y'all will double that. So within 6 months, it'll be gone. I know that there's some shortages there. I mean, tell me what we can do.
Yeah, so that's what I just identified to you. I mean, you may not agree with them, but I don't know. Our goal is public safety. And at the end of the day, if we just don't have the money, then again, our last resort is we have to call another agencies to come in and provide those services. We can only do and manage the best that we can when it comes to scheduling. And I get it, each one of those things I talked about, but again, that's our plan.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is proactive.
I got one
Go ahead,
question,
please,
Chair.
help me.
Overtime, I mean, is that like a road deputy or someone is scheduled to work in excess of their 8 hours to
Right,
be
correct.
a presence in the community, even though there's not an emergency?
Correct.
Or is it a person's own, his 8 hours is up and there's an emergency going on, he has to stay over? Define overtime. Are we scheduling overtime just to put a presence in the community?
Yes, sir. So some of the times what we find ourselves doing is in order for us to be able to have adequate response and to have enough people out on the shift, we work 12-hour shifts. We have extra people out to work so we can have enough to respond.
So in essence, it's scheduled overtime.
That's right.
Well, here, Sheriff, I'm not sure, and one of the things that I'm having to be very, very careful about here is, and I've also, and I think the members of council will agree with me, we cannot tell elected officials how to operate their offices and how to run their offices, and we're definitely not trying to do that, and I want to make sure that the record is clear that is not what council is trying to do. But what we are trying to do is find ways to help you stay within your budget, because as I indicated earlier, this is taking away from things that we can do in other offices. In fact, it's even taking away from the monies that we would like to be able to use in order to raise the salaries in your existing office. I'm looking at the proactive steps here that you have, but
So let me say something to the
Please,
comment
yes, sir.
you just made. I disagree with you on one thing. I get that's a perception thing that you just made a comment about, and that is that it taken away from the ability to raise salaries. We can raise salaries, so we could go back and use the differences of what we have from vacant slots, which we've done some of, and raise salaries. But at the end of the day, we can still find ourselves without people. And now it does bring the number down, but we're not able to actually go out and fight crime in the manner in which we have been doing. So as a result of that, now we end up with no one on our team. And now we end up having to use the resources of other agencies to come in and do those services.
so, and let me, again, I'm looking at the proactive steps, but, and maybe I'm just overlooking something here. What do you all plan to do from an operations standpoint to reduce the overtime where it will be in compliance with what you've been given to do your overtime? Because we're every year for the last several years, your office has gone over budget with overtime tremendously.
Well, I'd like to make this statement. I don't
Please.
know what sheriff has not gone over in their overtime budget.
Well,
And again, hold on, before you say what you get ready to say.
Well, you don't know what I'm getting ready to say.
Mine has gone over in regards, because you said it the last time, in regards to the sheriff's office going over, but that was during the period of COVID. That was during a natural disaster. And so during those periods that we often speak about with this $1 million, that money was refunded back to the county. Now, why it was not applied back to our line item, I can't tell you that.
And, okay, I'm not sure when and how that money was,
Yeah, well,
given back to the county. But what I do know is with our audits, the audit report ending 2020, the sheriff's office exceeded its budget by $1.3 million.
Yeah, and I get that.
Hold on, let me finish. The fiscal year ending 2021, the sheriff's office exceeded its budget by $1.4 million. Now that is according to our auditors. Okay, that's not Kelvin Washington. Okay, that's according to our auditors. That's a lot of money for a county this size, for any agency to be over its budget. And I agree with you that that previous predecessors of yours have probably gone over their budget. But I would not agree with you that they've gone over their budget by this amount of money. That's a tremendous amount of money for a county our size. Oh, the only thing we're trying to do, and I don't want you to misinterpret what we're trying to do, help us to help you with this overtime, because we've got to bring it in. We just had one elected official here before you who's trying to get some money for her staff. We've got other elected officials who are trying to get monies for their staffs. Any monies that we spend over what is being budgeted is being taken away from other things, and we can't do some of the other things that we would like to do. And I know I'm being repetitive, but it's a reality. And so, what can we do? What do we do to stay within, even if we raise it from 180 to 300? What guarantees are in place that you and the chief or whomever or in your command staff, what guarantees can you all give us that it's going to stay under $300,000? If we raise it to 300, what guarantees can you give us that it's going to stay under 300?
Okay. So let me go back and speak to something, because I think when we assert things and put them out there, they're heard. So the $1.3 million, again, that was during the time of COVID. And so, of course, doing that, the sheriff's office worked several hours. We completed duty sheets. We did things to document that time. I don't want it to be understood that the sheriff's office is taking away from someone. That's never been my intention, nor will it be my intention. However, that money we turned in for reimbursement. It came back to the county. I have no control over finances. I have no control over where it may go. So again, if we just put that number out there without adding to the fact that there was reimbursement of funding, it appears to be that the sheriff's office is taking from everybody else. I will not stand here and go along with that statement. Do I agree that our overtime exceeds? I definitely agree. I've never tried to hide that fact. But to blame that on us, no, sir. I cannot go along with that statement.
Well,
Hold on. I hadn't finished.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not here to be someone difficult to work with. But when statements are made along those lines, that's my job to stand up and have a response back to it.
Sure.
So hopefully we can move to what you just talked about, and that is problem resolution. If we keep making statements, if you make statements or I make statements, at the end of the day, we're going to keep going back and forth about statements to prove our position.
Sure.
The sheriff's office and myself, we come here today to be a part of a team, and that is to work along with anybody in this county. We do not want to take from anybody else. That's never been our position. Public safety is what we're about. I want that clearly to be known. So again, I offered what we have here. And if we find ourselves with this budget, you give that number is given to us and we're awarded that. At the end of the day, when we're out of funding with that, then we'll just have to solicit that the state come in and run services, because we can't do it. We have no other option.
Well, here.
Can I ask something, Supervisor?
Please, yes.
Yeah. Mr. Gardner,
Yes, sir.
I know we're here today trying to bring some resolution to a dire situation here.
Yes, sir.
And we were all on one accord with that.
Yes, sir.
I guess, and we're saying a lot of things, but factually we are not really getting to the crux of it. I guess the bottom line is, what can we do to bring this overtime down? Now, I was sitting here listening, And I don't know all the facets of, as I said before, law enforcement. But we definitely don't want another entity or agency to come in and take over, as has happened before in the county. Is there anything that we are currently doing that we could postpone until the financial situation get better? Let me give you an example. Something I think and all of these things take man hours. You go into each school, hypothetically, each school in the district, 2 officers, 2 hours a week. That's one thing. That's not something we have to have right now. We could postpone that until our financial situation gets a little better. That's just one thing. Are there any things like that that we could do, perhaps to save some finance or money until times gets better? Because I'm thinking, I'm like you too. It's something hard to digest. What do we do? But the bottom line is we have to do something. And I'm just throwing some things out there. Maybe there's some services that we are offering that we maybe could cut back on. Because if we don't do those things, like you said, we're going to run out of money in the middle of a fiscal year, and we're going to have to cut something perhaps that we didn't want to. So if we could look and see what can we cut without denigrating the integrity of our county and the safety of the citizens, what could those things be? And if we can identify something like that and perhaps give that a try.
Sure. And again, I agree with you. That's what we've been trying to do. When we speak about identifying time periods, that all relates to scheduling. How do we schedule people to around busy time periods? So it may not be that we need 4 people coming out at 7 o'clock in the morning. So at the end of the day, if we find that from 12 to 8 is our busiest period, try to reallocate our workforce around our busy periods. So that's why I put it on there in a bullet item, because it doesn't just fit. I don't know how you can specifically tie that into dollars, but at the end of the day, that's why I put it on there in the manner I did, and not trying to be offensive. I think the biggest thing that we can do is just manage our dollars, and that's something. That's the only way I know to do it. I don't know any other way, other than to try to identify a time period, schedule our workforce around the periods that it's there, and at the end of the day, work with what we got and try not to exceed our budget. And at the end of the day, if we got this budget and we got to comply with it, then that's what we're going to have to comply with. And then when we can't comply, then we just have to solicit the other resources. I don't want that either.
No.
I don't want supervisor, council, I don't want any of y'all to think that's what I want. I'm a realist, and that's not to be offensive to any of you all. I just deal with reality.
And there's nothing that we could cut back on or postpone for a period of time that's not vitally essential to the operation of the county and the sheriff department.
Well, the school resource officers are paid for by the state. Now, we've got some because
Right.
we've been trying to supplement it because they got to go get certified. So once that's done, then they'll change off to the SRO budget. But like I said, the only thing I know is the scheduling of people and try to change our scheduling up.
So, with that being said about your scheduling, Sheriff Gardner,
Right.
is that something that you all are beginning to work on, or will be working on, to schedule maybe less people
Yes, sir.
with some of these hours? I mean, we already know the dollar amount
Sure.
that we're aiming at, which is $11,500 per pay period, which right now we're at 23,000 is what we're averaging,
Right.
which means we're going to have to cut. We're going to have to cut that in half
That's correct.
of what you're doing now. Is that doable?
Supervisor and council, if that's the number we have, that's what we got to work with, and that's all I can do. And I can go and adjust schedule. I don't know any other way to put that. And that's not, like I said, that's not trying to be rude to any of you all. But the only thing I can do is take what we've got. I can't forecast crime. And I know, Supervisor, you know that as well. If I could, I'd be all right. I could stand here and give you definite answers to what you're asking me, but I can't. You know, and so at the end of the day, I can only take what you give me and then make that work. You tell me if I'm missing something. Maybe I haven't said something.
And no, and I agree with everything Sheriff said, and I just sat back there and been quiet and listened. And I hear what y'all are saying about overtime and what he's saying, and it is correct, and I agree with him 100%. And I think one other thing, and I hear Mr. Sam ask about overtime being scheduled, and like Sheriff said, it is. But, hey, I'm gonna say it because I'm a real person too, and I've talked to Sheriff about this before. But at the end of the day, too, there's other things that you need to put in the factor, too, when it comes to overtime. We're not just putting people on there to put them on there. We're putting them over there to cover calls for service. We're also putting them over there because we have community people that ask for assistance from the sheriff's office. When it comes down to parades, when it comes down to municipalities asking for assistance because they don't have the people. At the end of the day, the municipalities are in the county. Who has to respond to that is the sheriff's office. We know we have 2 small municipalities around here, 3, that are not able to fulfill some of the needs they have. And all 3 of them have big events: Shag Festival, Stag Festival, Barbecue Flag Festival. And we have to provide services for them because they're asking for our request because other agencies are not able to provide that for them. Where's that coming from? Overtime. Citizens are asking for the sheriff's office to provide officers for certain events. Most events, they are paying for it when it comes to paying for it, but when it comes to parades, we have a ton of parades that goes on. Sheriff's office has to provide manpower for those parades, for road closure. Where is that coming from? Overtime. So I hear you, Councilwood, say, what can we cut back on? If we decide we're gonna cut back on stuff like that, then it's gonna be the citizens that's gonna be lacking. It's gonna be problems when that happens because now you have nobody to direct traffic control just in case something happens.
Right.
You have nobody to provide for these festivals. When these individuals see that there's no law enforcement out there, back to the shootings again, it's gonna go back up.
Chief, and thank you, and you're absolutely correct. I recognize that. But let me ask, and either one of you all, please feel free to answer this question. I asked our payroll clerk to tell me what the number of hours were that we had in overtime in our last 2 weeks. And it was 1,074 hours. Now that's above the regular salaries hours, okay, that you all's employees would normally have to work. 1,074 hours. Now I understand what you just said as it relates to having to work those festivals and doing all of those things. Those are things that have to be done. And yes, the smaller communities do lean on the sheriff's office a lot. But now, with all due respect to those communities, those are not things that we're doing every day, and sometimes not even every month. But now, we've got 1,000 hours, 1,074 hours of overtime, which equals $25,000. Added on to our payroll, 1 pay period, okay? Can you all give this finance committee, these members of council, some idea of what happened over the last 2 weeks to justify 1,000 hours of overtime at that office by not that many? Because, I mean, you've already explained to us that you don't, I mean, that you have shortages, and we get that. We understand that. So that means that that's a lot of overtime hours by a few people. Can y'all tell us a little bit maybe about, help me to help you, is what I guess I'm asking.
The only thing I can say to that is if you want a breakdown of what happened with that, we can provide that. We won't be able to provide that today, and it'll break down the hours and what hours were committed to what, so you got an actual realization. Because if we just speak to it, we're going to keep going back and forth about what someone may have done or did not do and what we believe. So I'll be glad to provide you all for the last 2 weeks that we just spoke about, what that breakdown of what those hours consisted of. And that way you know exactly what it is. That way we won't sit here and keep going back and forth. But that's what's going to happen. You know, at the end of the day, we've got a responsibility to be proactive and to be in our community and deter crime. And you have a job to be the supervisor, and
Right.
have a strategic plan of how we gonna cut this overtime.
Absolutely.
I get it. We switch rules. So I get it. I don't want you to think that I'm offended by that. I completely,
Understand.
and I think Vernie will tell you, have I not told you I understand that? So I understand that there's a business side to this.
Yes,
I
sir.
don't want any of you all to walk away from that. But just
Right.
understand, my business side is that I gotta make sure I answer to the citizens. when it
Right,
comes to
and,
crime.
and we want to help you all. I mean, I'm here.
I know you do.
I
know you.
I mean, you already know. I mean, I'm 33 years of this business. But I also have the responsibility now of helping the other departments and the other elected officials as well.
Yes, sir.
And so, like I said earlier, you know, we've got to try to help everybody.
Yes, sir.
And you know, we're working with a limited amount of funds.
Yes, sir.
And we got to try to do what we can to help as many people as we can.
Yeah, so.
Let me just say this, Sheriff, and kind of repeating a lot of what the supervisor said. We're not here to tell you how to run your department. Your job is to protect and serve the citizens of this county, and you do an excellent job, you and Chief Deputy and all your staff, and we appreciate what you do very much. I requested your services one time earlier this year. I had a house break-in. You were there immediately. You do a good job. However, it is our job to pass a budget for your department as council, okay? And we are going to attempt to increase your budget because we see the need for an increase because you are obviously needing a lot more money in the last few years than what we've been providing. However, we also owe a duty to the other departments to see to it that you stay within your budget.
That's right.
That's what we're trying to say. We're not saying you're taking from anybody or anything like that. We're saying we owe this same obligation and duty to each department to see to it that they stay within their budget. And I would just ask you as a county councilman, however you can do it, whatever way you see fit, you and Chief Deputy Cumbie,
Right.
help us help you.
Right.
We want to increase your budget. Please help us stay within the budget. That's what we're all about today.
Yep.
Okay?
Completely understand.
Okay.
And that's all I can do. I've given you the things that we're trying to use to bring those numbers down. And at the end of the day, you give us a budget, and that's what we're going to have to go with. And then, like I said, the other option is where we at.
I don't have anything else. Do any of you all have anything else? Sheriff, Chief, y'all have anything else?
No, we good.
All right, very good. Thank you all
Thank
so
y'all for your
much.
time.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Okay. I think next we have the clerk of court. Good morning.
Supervisor
Good morning,
council members.
Madam Clerk.
And the clerk.
Good morning. Yes.
I'm here again one more time before you all. The last meeting that we had and I came before you, and I think I misunderstood something that you stated that I needed to do. I really thought you were speaking in reference to my staff when I came before you in reference to their salary increases. But you said I did not need to come back before you all in reference to their increases, am I correct?
That's correct, because you put that within your budget request. So that was included in your budget request.
Okay,
Yes, that's correct.
okay, so I want to understand what it is that you were asking me to do.
Well, I think that several weeks ago, we had a discussion about a supplement that you received individually, and I advised you that I would not be able to approve that, that county council would be the only ones that could approve that. And at that time, I think I explained to you, or at least I thought I explained it to you, that you would need to meet with council to go before council and have them to approve that expenditure, because it was coming directly to you and it was coming to you as an elected official. So at the last, not the last council meeting, but 2 council meetings ago, you were on the agenda, and we were anticipating you coming to be on the agenda to address that issue. But for whatever reason, you were not there.
Okay. I wasn't at work that day period. I was sick. I was out sick.
Okay,
that
I'm
day.
sorry. Well, we didn't know because I checked with the clerk and asked her whether or not she had been notified or as to what happened, and I also checked with my administrative assistant. And I checked my voicemails as well to see if maybe I had overlooked something to see why you were not here. But in any event, that's what happened with that. But that's what I had expressed to you, is that we would not be able to. I did not believe that the county supervisor on his own, on my own, had the authority to approve that expenditure. That was something that needed to be brought before county council.
Okay.
And I still believe that to today. Yes.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding your position on this. When I came to the supervisor, the prior supervisor, Cook, and sat down with her, had this discussion with her, asking for a salary increase, I was instructed by her to go see the chief financial officer at that time, which was Ms. Liz Nelson, do my paperwork for my increase in salary. That's exactly what I did, which I have my copy here in my hand.
Yes, ma'am.
Signed by the chief financial officer at the time, the finance director, Ms. Liz Nelson, 8/12/2021.
Yes, ma'am.
A status form that should be in my file.
Yes, ma'am.
I've never known, and I've been here since 1996. I've never known where elected officials or either employees had to come back and do a status form every single year. Once you have a salary set, that's a salary set. So I'm not understanding what it is that you're asking of me, because I don't know of anything in our policy saying that you have to do a status form every year after you receive a salary increase. Because that would be just like normal salaries. If that's the case, we would have to come back every single year and fill out a status form.
Okay.
Madam Clerk,
Oh, go
if I
ahead,
may
I'm sorry.
address that. And I think you went right to the heart of the matter. That salary increase was approved by the former supervisor and Ms. Nelson. It was not approved by this council. It was brought to our attention. And I will tell you that I was one of the ones that did not agree with it. I am of the opinion that as an elected official, you signed the books to run for an office, and you know your salary when you sign that book. And it's a term, it's a 2-year, it's a 4-year, it's a 6-year. And that your filing fee is based upon your salary.
Correct.
And for you to receive any additional salary in and above what you signed up to run for is just, quite frankly, I just don't think that's what I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair to the citizens that you announce to them that you're going to run for office for this amount of money, for this length of term, and then to come in to an agency without coming before county council and get an increase, not a small increase, a pretty significant increase in salary. I'm just not going to support that, and that's my position.
Okay, an increase, like I said, that I went to the supervisor. I did not just get an increase. I went to the supervisor.
Did you ask any members of council?
Her thing was she was going to take it to council.
Did you
So,
ask any member of council?
I did not even come before council.
Okay.
I went to the supervisor and spoke with her.
Right. Which
I
is,
spoke with the
I'm sorry.
Okay, I spoke with the supervisor, like I said, did my paperwork, signed off on my paperwork. So it wasn't a thing that I just went and I got a salary increase. It was not like that. But that's what people try to portray it as. It was not like that. The other thing is,
Madam Clerk, can I interject before we move into something else? So, I want you to understand my position with it, and you and I have had this conversation. It is my opinion that my predecessor did not have the authority to do that, that only the members of county council is the governing body for Williamsburg County. They are the only ones that have the authority to address the issues of salary increase, salary supplements as it relates to that of elected officials. That's why I shared with you when we talked last month that, we would need to bring that issue that I did not have the authority to do it. I didn't believe I had the authority to do it. in that we would need to bring that issue before council. Whatever council voted to do is what I would respectfully honor. And that was my position last month, and that's still my position today. I'm sorry for interrupting you, ma'am.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I appreciate it, thank you. But I did want to get back to the statement that Councilman Floyd made when he stated that we sign up to run for a position. Yes, we do sign up to run for a position, and the salaries are there at that time. I am not the first, and I'm pretty sure I won't be the last elected official who has received a salary increase since they first signed up to run for an office. You can't tell me that, because that's not so. I've spoken with other clerks who have received raises the same exact way. Whose responsibility is it to turn in the salaries to the state as far as the sign-up fee is to run? Whose responsibility is that?
I'm going to disagree with you. I think you are locked into a term. That's the reason you run for a 4-year term at that salary. Now, at the end of those 4 years, if that salary is increased, just like the president or the vice president or whoever, but I think you are locked in for those 4 years. It's just my opinion.
Okay, and I did not request a salary. I have been the clerk since 2013. I requested a salary increase in 2021. That was my 3rd term.
And going back, and Madam Clerk, I don't want you to think that I'm treating you any differently than I'm treating anyone else. I've already had this conversation earlier this year with another elected official. This is just my personal opinion. I may be completely wrong. I've been wrong many times. But I am of the opinion when you run for an elected position, that once you get elected to that position, that salary remains the same for the term of that, for that term. That's your salary. When you signed up to run, that was what you signed up to run for. Not just you, me, the supervisor, Senator Sabb, every elected official. I'm not just talking about you. I'm talking about all elected officials. Now, I know of no elected official since I've been on council that got a pay increase during their term. I don't know of any. Now, but I also agree with the supervisor in that it is the job of county council to determine salary increases, just like what we were talking about this morning with the treasurer and what we're talking about with the sheriff, that's our job. And for whatever reason, I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying it's your fault. I don't want you to say that I am. But what I'm saying to you is it was never brought to our attention until after the fact that it was done last year. And I think Councilman Woods on finance would agree with me. So that's just all I'm saying to you.
Okay,
And that's my position. We may just have to agree that we disagree.
and I understand your position. So therefore, the other question I wanted to ask, have other elected officials who've received increases in salaries the same way been asked to do the same thing?
I'm not aware of any other elected officials that are receiving any other supplements the way that you were receiving yours, because very few of the elected officials have access to monies to be able to do that. Now, of course, the state of South Carolina has given some salary supplements that the state is paying for that will go to certain elected officials. And of course, we're going to honor that because those monies are coming from the state for those purposes. But I'm not aware of any elected official. I've not met with any who have funds similar to how you have funds. No, none have.
So you're saying I'm the only elected official who has special funding?
That's not what I said. What I said is that none have come and met with me and discussed supplements to their salaries. No, ma'am.
Okay.
From special funding, because as I said earlier, there are very few elected officials who do have special funding that they can do different things with.
Correct. And it is my understanding that other elected officials have received salary increases from special funding. So my question to the body is, have you required those people just as well to come back before council to ask for an increase in their salaries? Now, you say you've been going through with the auditors and you've been looking at the numbers. The numbers should tell you who these people are or who the person is. And so I just want to make sure I'm being treated fairly and I'm not being singled out. If you're asking me to do it, are you asking everyone else to do it? The same people, let me finish.
Okay.
Not only elected officials, but other people, period, in your office who may have received increases last year that did not come before county council.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may, Madam Clerk, at the beginning of the year, we found out there were about a dozen?
Right.
A dozen elected officials, department heads that were receiving supplemented salaries that the council was unaware of. We didn't know about it. It was unilaterally done. It's not just you. We're not picking on you. I was the one that made the motion to suspend all those salaries, supplemental salaries. We suspended them on everybody, not you. Everybody's was suspended. Isn't that correct, Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, sir, it is.
Even the ones that was
It was
rolled
voted- it
into
was
salaries
voted-
before
It was a
the
s-
end of the year?
The ones that were rolled into salary, there were two different things, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, there were salaries and then there were salary supplements. What they stopped was salary supplements, which is what you were asking for, which is a supplement to your salary.
No, I was
Ca-
not
wait a
asking
minute,
for a
let me
supplement
finish.
to my
No,
salary.
wait a minute, let me finish. Yes, it's a supplement to your salary because county council is the only body that has the authority to raise the salary of an elected official. The county supervisor does not have that authority. And so, in order for you to receive any additional funding to your salary, and I know I'm being repetitive, but the only way that to be able to do that and do that legally is that it has to come before council. Madam Clerk, with all due respect, there were a lot of things that were done prior to my arrival here in January. Some of those things, many of those things we've corrected. We've corrected as many of those things as we could have corrected. There were some things that were already put into place before we got here that we had to leave in place because of certain legal restrictions. But now the matter at hand today as it relates to your supplement, because that's what it is. It's not a salary increase. It's a supplement to your salary. Again, county council I believe that it's county council's responsibility to either vote that up or vote it down. I do not have the authority to do that. That is a decision by council. I think that we're going to have another council meeting before the final budget is passed. If you want to be placed on that agenda to come before council, I have no objection to it if that's what council wants to do, and you can come before council and plead your case. But again, I'm not going to approve that. I'm not going to approve that transaction without county council's approval.
So therefore, once again, as I stated, when it comes to status forms for Williamsburg County, they're only good for a particular amount of time once they're signed?
No, ma'am. I just
no,
ma'am.
wanted a yes
No,
or no?
no. Let me explain.
Okay.
That status form that was signed, as far as I'm concerned, is not worth the piece of paper it was written on, because it addressed something that can't be addressed by the supervisor. It addressed raising the salary of an elected official. The county supervisor does not have that authority on his or her own. County council is the only body that has that authority to do that.
Okay.
And it was not brought before county council. And the only thing that I was asking of you is, if we're going to do it, let's do it the right way. Let's bring it before council. Whatever council votes to do, I will comply with, and then we'll move on.
And then now you're saying that I didn't do it the right way, but the last meeting you told them I was the only one who did do it the right way because I do have a status form. So that's what confused me the last time when I came in here and was talking to you. But just like I said, I just want to make sure I'm being treated fair just like everybody else. And whether you're asking everyone else who received an increase this way to do the same. Now, I don't know if it's a thing that, and like I said, I don't want to call anybody's name because like I said, this is not executive session.
Right.
But if you want to go to executive session, I don't have a problem telling you who I'm talking about. Because I just want to make sure that it's being done fair across the board. That you're not just telling me that I have to come back when other elected officials, like I said, have received salary increases the same way.
I haven't signed off on any paperwork since January of any elected official, okay, to receive any supplements to their salary and to hold me responsible for what happened before January 3rd, Madam Clerk, I don't believe is unfair to me. It's not right to hold me responsible for that. Those things happened before I got here. I'm trying to correct this stuff as best I can. Now, I want to, as a point of clarification, I want to clarify something that you just said. Yes, I did make the comment that you did something correctly. You did something correctly by going to the county supervisor and talking to the county supervisor about your salary supplement. Yes, you were correct by doing that. But it went downhill after that because and I hate to say anything about my predecessor, what I will say is what I would have done is that I would have shared to you, as I've shared with you already, this is not a decision as a county supervisor I can make. This is a decision that's best handled by county council. That was not done in the previous administration. But that's how it's going to be done in this administration.
Right. And like I said, I understand your position. I'm
Yes,
not trying
ma'am.
to blame you, but
Yes, ma'am.
you're saying that you didn't come in here. And I understand you only came in this year, but you're saying you're trying to correct things that were done prior to you coming here. So that's why I proposed the question. Is it going to be done fair across the board? Are you going to go back and ask other people the same thing, to come before council to ask for their salary increase?
If a salary supplement request is brought to me by an elected official, yes, ma'am, they're going to have to do the same thing that you're doing.
But you're saying if it's brought to you. What do you mean if it's brought to
Well,
you?
it has to come before me, Madam Clerk, because payroll falls under the county supervisor.
Correct.
So it has to come before me.
But I think the way you're saying it is kind of throwing people off, is throwing me off. You saying if it's brought to you. Do you think that they're going to bring it to you?
If they want to get it approved, it's going to have to come to me, and then I'll bring it to council because these are elected officials.
But other than that, it's not going to change. Their salary won't change.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
I'm saying, the question I asked, are you going to ask other elected officials or appointed officials who've received salaries under the prior administration, who did not do a status form but got salary increases, are you going to ask those people just as well to come before council to request those salary increases?
I'm not aware of any increases of any of the other elected officials. No one's brought any of those things to me, Madam Clerk, or to anyone in my office that I'm aware of. And again, I would have to sign off on the status form anyway.
I think you're still missing the question and the point.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, I just have one question. I was sitting here listening, and you guys have had quite a thorough discussion. But my question is to you, I have one question. Do you agree that if something was done wrongly and illegally, is it fair, proper, and fitting to go and try and fix it? That's just my question.
What was done illegally?
I said if something was done illegally, is it proper and fitting that this administration go and try and fix it legally?
Okay, but I don't want you to put out to people, the citizens who are watching, that something was done illegally, because that's not so. But that's how you're saying it.
No, listen, listen. No.
Because that's not so. Now,
Okay.
if there was an issue, just like I've told you before, when we've sat in executive session meetings or private finance meetings, if there was an issue with me coming to her asking for a salary increase and her giving permission for it to get done, why didn't council come to me then? It's 2023. You talk about something that happened in 2021. No one ever came to me and said a word.
Okay, yeah, but that's past. I know I can't go back and undo what has been done. But my question is simply to you this: if the emphatic form of the verb if something was done illegally, is it improper for this administration to try and fix it?
No, it's not improper.
Okay,
If
that's-
something was done illegally.
That's right,
That's
okay.
you, like you said, but nothing was done illegally when it came to this.
I-
Now, if you had other things that was done illegally, then yes.
Okay, you answer
Yes.
you answer my question.
Okay.
Why don't we use this term, Madam Clerk? Would you agree and Mr. Woods, would you agree? Let's use the term inappropriately. Would you all both agree that would be maybe a better term to use as it relates?
Legally, it's better because some can
let-
be inappropriate and just inappropriate. But if it's illegally, it's against the law.
Let me address this issue because I was here when this occurred. And Mr. Supervisor, it's not fair, but Councilman Woods and I were here on the Finance Committee. And it was brought to our attention after the fact. It was already done. I think I'll let Councilman Woods speak for himself. I disagree with it. I myself went to Mr. Jenkinson, the county attorney. I went to his office and asked him to get me a legal opinion as to whether it was done appropriately. To this day, I have not received that legal opinion. Okay, so it was tried to be addressed, but I don't want you to think that we were, all of a sudden on board at that time, Madam Clerk. And you're not being treated any differently. As I stated, there were other folks that were given supplements, and what was meant by the term, at least you did it right, you brought to our attention. That's what we meant by that.
Right.
Other folks got supplements. County council never even knew about it. We weren't even never made aware. And so the fact that you at least made us aware, I do commend you for that. I might not agree with you, but I do think you attempted to get it done the right way. Is what I'm saying. I don't think it was done the right way, but I think you tried to do it the right way. I agree with that. And that's what I'm getting at. Other folks that did it, we were never even made aware of it. And the minute that we found out about it under this administration, this county council came out and voted unanimously. Let me say that again. Unanimously to suspend that supplemental pay for everyone receiving it, not just you. Okay, so I want to be very clear on that. No one's here today. I don't want you to think you're being treated unfairly or you're being picked out and picked on. That is not the case at all. And so, anyway.
And I agree with Councilman Floyd. It's nothing you did. I think you did what you thought you were supposed to do, but just apparently, in our opinion, it's not. It wasn't done the right way, and all we're trying to do is straighten it out. That's all.
Okay,
That's all.
and I understand that.
Yes.
But why are you waiting? Like I said, this was done in 2021. You both sat, not the supervisor, because this supervisor was not here.
Mm-hmm.
You both sat on council. If there was an issue in 2021, why didn't you all come to me? That's what I'm saying.
Okay, let me
You're
ask-
talking about now it's 2023, and the current supervisor wants to address this.
Mm-hmm.
But you were the council members that sat on council, never came to me to address anything,
Okay, let me
Come to us?
Let me answer for you.
because I went to her.
Did you come to
As
us?
supervisor.
But did you
Okay.
come to us?
No, I did not
Okay.
come to you. I said that already.
Well, Sharon, see, the day-to-day operation, that's the supervisor. This is a new administration. A lot of things that happened we didn't even know. But now we know. So once you find out that a wrong has been done, all you can do at that point is try to rectify. Because nothing we can't go back and undo what has been done, but we can rectify it from this point forward. And that's what we're trying to do. And I don't know about anybody else, I'm not singling you out for anything.
Not at
I want to see everyone treated the same. And that's all we're trying to do.
Okay, and that's all I'm asking you.
Yeah, well, that's what
That's
we're on
all
the
I'm
same page.
asking
Okay.
And that's all we're after. We
Okay.
want everybody to eat out the same bowl, with the same spoon.
Like
That's
I
it.
said, that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
And that's why I asked the questions that I asked. Are you going to go back and ask the other people to do the same thing? But I thank you all for your time. I do have another question when it comes to the budget. As far as you said, the second reading is coming up.
Second reading.
Let me say one
Go
thing
ahead.
before
Yes,
we go any
please.
further,
Absolutely.
Madam Clerk. Any one of those other folks is welcome to come before this body and ask, just like you're asking today, what transpired. They can get on the agenda for any meeting, and I'll tell them the same thing I'm telling you. They're more than welcome to get it on. Okay, and if they're listening today, if you guys would like to come address council, come to address the full body. We'll listen to you.
But do you think that's going to happen? No.
I'm just saying they're welcome to.
Okay. Back to the question about the budget. The second reading you said is coming up when?
Second reading, July 3rd.
Do you know how long after that elected officials and department heads will be given a copy of their budget?
Actually, the department heads and elected officials might receive theirs before then. I'm not sure. Finance Committee, we're actually having a budget work session this afternoon. And so once we meet this afternoon and discuss things, the department heads and the elected officials might receive their budgets as early as next week.
Okay. So in between the second reading and the third.
Again, I said might.
Okay, I
Might
heard you.
receive. Okay, all right. I didn't say they will.
But
They
definitely
might
before the
receive.
third reading, am
Oh,
I correct?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
So that's what my next question is pertaining to. Will we have the opportunity, if we have something else that comes up between that time, or something that we are maybe not quite satisfied with in our budget, to come back before the Finance Committee? Before the third reading?
That will be up to the members of the finance committee. Personally speaking, I wouldn't have any objections to it. Obviously, it'll be a scheduling because we're only going to have about a 15-day period between second reading and third reading. So if we can get it scheduled, I personally, I don't have an issue with it.
Okay. Okay.
But-
The reason why I'm, like I said, I'm asking these
but
questions is.
let me say this. Each one of us are extremely busy people, and sometimes coordinating our schedules is not the easiest thing to do for Madam Clerk. So we will do the very best that we can to try to accommodate anyone that wants to come back before us.
Okay, because I want to think that's maybe how it used to be done in the past. Am I correct or am I wrong, team? Okay, we haven't done a budget in so long, seem like. And so I think a lot of us kind of forgot the process, because like I said, this is the first year we've done a budget in what, probably like 3 years?
Madam Clerk,
I
that's
understand.
one thing you and I can agree on here today.
Right. So, like I said, I just want to make sure, because like I said, you almost kind of forgot the process,
And-
but,
And Madam Clerk, I will agree with you, and from the work that we've been doing and how we've really, the struggles that we've had with this budget, your comment just now is 100% accurate.
Okay.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I can absolutely see that it's been a while since it's been dealt with.
correct.
But we
Well, it was in our budget we had no control over because we didn't put it in there.
I understand.
Okay,
I
just want
understand.
to make that clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Because things were in our budget that we as elected and officials and department heads did not put in the budget. County
Yes, ma'am.
council votes on the budget, but we did not do a budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I understand.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything for Madam Clerk?
Nope.
All right.
And I
Sure.
just want to thank Councilman Hills for always sitting in, even though she says she's not a member of the Finance Committee. I have to commend her,
Yes.
because a lot of times the other council members who, I don't know what they may have to do, but a lot of times they're not here. But I've noticed every time you've been here, so I want to just thank you for that.
Yep. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you so
all
much. Thank you. All right. Y'all want to take a break or y'all want to keep going?
I won't be but a minute.
Okay. All right. So next, we have our auditor.
It's still morning. Good
Hey,
morning.
Good morning. Come on
Supervisor.
up. Yes. Good morning. Yes.
You just answered my questions. I mainly just wanted to see if I could get a copy of the proposed maybe budget
Sure.
before it finally passes, and I just heard you explain that to Ms. Staggers, so
Yes.
if I could get that, before it gets passed, so I
Absolutely.
can see what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
all I need.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. All right. I want to take this opportunity to thank those of you all who tuned in today, but also would be remiss if I didn't thank the members of council who took time out of their busy schedules to be here with us this morning to discuss the very important business of Williamsburg County and to discuss the business for the people of Williamsburg County. I also want to thank those 4 elected officials who took time out of their busy schedules to come before us and advocate on behalf of their office. I do want to remind everyone that our next council meeting will be July 3rd, which is a Monday. We have not had a first Monday night meeting in a number of years, and so I want to go ahead and try to get that word out now that we are having our council meeting on its regular scheduled date, which is the first Monday night in July, which is July 3rd. And we will be hopefully doing the second reading of the budget that evening. If all hearts and minds are clear, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
We have a motion to adjourn by our Vice Chair, Mr. Woods, and a second by Councilman Floyd. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Thank you all so much for being with us.